Croatia. Wine and Croatia have had an on-again, off-again relationship going back thousands of years. And today, it's on, baby. Fermented grape juice is flowing as the last 30 years has seen the Croatian wine industry's rebirth and revitalization. This country has so much of what we love in a wine destination: indigenous grapes, authentic wines, diversity in styles and climates, delicious food culture, and sensational views. While Croatia may be known for its islands and sunshine, it also combines the best of Mediterranean and Central European culture into one gorgeous package stewarded by warm, welcoming people. So welcome to Croatia, and welcome to V is for Vino. If you come to Croatia for a summer beach vacation, you'll likely fly into Split or Dubrovnik on the central or southern coast. But for our trip, we're flying into the capital city of Zagreb, which is the largest city of the country with almost 1 million people. This city is a charming blend of Austro-Hungarian architecture with modern European feel. Cobblestone streets, medieval buildings, street art, and traditional cafes all blend together to make a perfect jumping-off point for our journey into Croatian wine country. Welcome to Zagreb, and welcome to Croatia, an episode I've been dying to make. This is my first time here, but from everything I've heard, Croatia is a land of warm, passionate people who take deep pride in their traditions, food, music, coffee culture, and of course, wine. If you're like me, you might know this country for its stunning beaches, world-class soccer, I know football for the rest of the world, and perhaps the Yugoslav wars if you're old enough to remember them. But I can't wait to go beyond the surface with you and explore the real Croatia. To do so, let's first take a step back and unpack this country's long and at times turbulent history. Croatia's winemaking roots trace back to the Illyrians, who are believed to have cultivated vines here by 1000 BC, making Croatia one of Europe's oldest wine regions. By 400 BC, the Greeks introduced new grape varieties and winemaking techniques before the Romans conquered the area in the 1st century AD, integrating Croatian wine into their vast trade networks. For the next 2,000 years, Croatia changed hands more times than a hot potato, but fortunately, most rulers embraced winemaking. The Catholic Church encouraged production in the Middle Ages. The alcohol-adverse Ottomans in the 16th century only had control of a part of the country, and under Habsburg rule in the 18th century, viticulture thrived as the nobles loved wine. Even Napoleon's very brief rule from 1809 to 1813 was fine because, he was French, of course. The Austro-Hungarian Empire that followed also enjoyed wine and continued its cultivation. But then things took a dark turn. In the mid-19th century, cheap Italian wine flooded the market due to an agreement the Austro-Hungarian Empire made with Italy. And next, the root louse phylloxera wiped out over 90% of vineyards. World War I and World War II further devastated production as Croatia fell under Axis-backed control. And after World War II in the 1940s, communist Yugoslavia nationalized vineyards, prioritizing quantity over quality and wrecking any craftsmanship the industry had left. By the time Croatia declared independence in 1991, only 5 private winemakers remained. And after the brutal Yugoslav wars from 91 to 95, Croatia's wine industry was essentially starting from scratch. The real tragedy isn't just the time lost, it's the knowledge, traditions, and vines themselves. Croatia is still home to over 130 indigenous grape varieties, but imagine how many more were lost forever. There's also countless stories of winemakers, some of whom carried generations of expertise, fleeing to make wine in other parts of Europe, New Zealand, or the US. You probably even know the most famous example, Miljenko Grgić. In 1954, he fled communist Yugoslavia, first landing in Germany and Canada before finally arriving in California in 1958. He changed his name to Mike Grgić and worked his way up in the Napa Valley wine scene. And in 1976, his Chateau Montolina Chardonnay won the Judgment of Paris tasting, beating the top white Burgundies of France and upending the wine world. He went on to be one of Napa's most influential winemakers, founding what is now Grgić Hills Estate. That was Croatia's win as much as it was America's. But the good news is that over the last 30 years, Croatia's wine industry has made an incredible comeback, now boasting over 800 producers across 4 major wine regions, reclaiming its place on the global wine stage. Croatia has 4 major wine regions, but you can really break them into 2 main climate zones. The coastal regions have a warm, hot Mediterranean climate with mild winters and dry, breezy summers. Then you've got the inland regions, which have a cooler, wetter continental climate due to the Dinaric Alps, which trap moisture and block warm coastal air. Starting in the north, we have the uplands, also known as the Central Croatia Highlands. This region produces 20% of Croatia's wine and is best known for sparkling wines and crisp, cool climate whites. The wines here have a similar style to Hungary and Slovenia, featuring both indigenous and international varieties. You'll find the white grape Puszapel, also known as Ferment in Hungary, along with Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir, Riesling, and Portugieser. Heading east, you reach Slavonia and Danube, Croatia's fertile farmland, producing about half of the country's wine. Here, the white grape Graševina is king, and its style varies from light and refreshing to rich and complex, and even sweet. You'll also find Frankovka, or Blaufränkisch, and some international varieties thriving in this region too. Now, let's get to the coast. Istria and Kvarner are quickly becoming the most well-defined wine tourism regions in Croatia, especially Istria, where the white grape Malvazija Istarska dominates production. But you'll also find Muscat Mumjanski, a highly aromatic local muscat. For reds, Teran is the star. It's both earthy and deeply connected to Istrian wine history. And finally, we reach Dalmatia, Croatia's hottest region, both in temperature and current tourism status. This is where you'll find the country's most famous and boldest red, Plavac Mali, along with the medium-bodied red, Babic, and native whites like Posip and Grk. These 4 regions are further divided into 16 ZOI, or Zaštićena Oznaka Izvornosti, which are Croatia's versions of a designated appellation like an AOC in France, a few of which we'll be visiting in this episode. I'm gonna do my best to pronounce these Croatian grape names, but fair warning, a lot of these wines are new to me too, so I may need a little help along the way. Luckily, I'm not doing this alone. I've got friends in high places here in Croatia. And no, I'm not talking about the Prime Minister, even though his office is pretty much right behind me. I'm talking about a few amazing Croatian wine experts who will be joining me throughout this shoot. And I'm on my way to meet one of them right now after a little pit stop. Every day at noon since 1877, a tradition happens in Zagreb. The Grich cannon goes off. I've never seen a cannon go off, and the child in me wanted to see cannon go boom. But we kept missing our shot to film it. Our schedule was packed. But finally, on our last day of production, we arrived at 11:58 a.m. with 2 minutes to spare. It's that little guy right in the window. Apparently this goes off every day at noon. Everybody is here, they're excited. I have no idea what's gonna happen. Apparently it's really loud. I'm a little worried. I'm gonna be in a war zone, so let's just see what happens. We're 10 seconds away. Oh! Now the alarm's going.
Awesome.
We got it.
Let's go.
We got it. Croatia has 4 main wine regions, but one of them, Dalmatia, I won't be visiting in person. Not because I don't want to, but because it already gets plenty of attention, so I want to shine a light on some of the country's other wine areas. That said, Dalmatia is home to some of Croatia's most celebrated wines, especially its richer whites and bold, robust reds. So to experience the region vicariously through its bottles, I met up with my friend Tomislav for lunch to taste a few of its most iconic selections. What's up, buddy?
Hi, welcome to Zagreb.
Tomislav runs a Croatian wine tour company, Croatia by the Glass. So who better to share my first meal of the trip with? We're kicking things off at a Dalmatian restaurant, Korčula, in downtown Zagreb. Zagreb's a cool town.
It is my hometown, and I'm living here all of my life, and I would say just the right size. It's not too big, it's not too small.
It's big enough that there's a lot of restaurants, a lot of bars, a lot of things happening, but small enough that, like, the airport's accessible. I can get to the city pretty quick. Patio culture, everybody hanging out, relaxing, having a drink in the afternoon. I love it.
Yeah, maybe it's even too relaxed, but we do it that way and we love it, yeah. Well, we have a Posip for the start, one of many Croatian indigenous grape varieties. And it is, I would say, my favorite white variety in Croatia because it has a little bit of freshness, but still strong in the body, so it combines everything you need in a wine.
Wow, a lot of kind of fragrant, floral on the nose.
Yeah, and I like this peachy character of it.
Very peachy. Ooh, juicy but ripe.
Part of it spent a few months in the oak, so it gives him a bit of creaminess and a structure.
And good minerality too. I've heard some people compare it to Chardonnay. I don't think it really does that as much as it's maybe like a ripe Italian variety.
It's Posip.
Yeah, it's Posip. I'll find that a lot, I think, in all of Croatia is like, there's these indigenous grapes that remind you of something from somewhere else, but Croatia is its own thing and they deserve to be categorized as their own.
More than 100 of indigenous grape varieties in Croatia, which is considering the size of our country.
Pretty remarkable. But it has a really old winemaking history, right?
Yeah, you would be surprised. It's more than 2,500 years.
Wow.
So yeah, pretty old.
And right on time, our waiter Ivan came out with the first of our Dalmatian dishes.
Our wild asparagus with young goat cheese. In the middle we have wild Adriatic tuna with some homemade flatbread. And soparnik, which is a traditional dish from the Dalmatian mainland, but we do it a little bit in our way and put some smoked tuna on the top.
Thank you so much. Young asparagus, huh?
And these are wild asparagus, the best ones.
Oh, the tartar is like to die for. I think the cuisine, is going to be pretty exciting.
You will not stay hungry, believe me.
Medium to full-bodied, high-acid white wines like this Posip are incredibly versatile when there are lots of dishes on the table. The acidity cuts through fatty elements like cheese or tuna with olive oil, pairs beautifully with salt from the bread and smoked fish, and even matches the acidity in the salad dressing. At the same time, the wine's weight stands up to heartier dishes like the bread and tuna. And since these are all Dalmatian dishes, there's a simple rule at play here. If it grows together, it goes together. So you also run a tour company, right? Croatia by the Glass.
2 years ago, I decided to start something on my own, doing wine tours all across Croatia. I've been in a wine business for many years. I had a beautiful experience in those cellars, so I wanted to share this experience with my guests.
People get asked that all the time. Oh, I don't know what the tasting room etiquette is. Do I make a reservation? Can I just walk in? And you just handle the whole thing.
Good friend with many of them, so everything is can be done.
You will continue with the main course. With,
look at
Adriatic
that.
prawns. Maybe you will need this part if you don't want to stay. If
I
you wanna
better take it.
If you want to stay clean.
Yeah, my wife will tell you.
Send the bill.
Every single article of clothing I have has sauce stains on it. But that wasn't all. All the salt
sea bass
crust.
baked in the salt. Yep. I'll just clean it up a little bit for you so you can.
Yes, I'm
continue
going to
and
watch
enjoy
you
it.
intently. Well, it tastes like the sea.
Wonderful, it melts in the mouth.
It's so buttery. The prawns you just do by your hand, right?
Good part.
Oh,
from
yeah,
inside.
there it is. See?
This is like a delicacy.
It's like a little lobster, but it's so tender.
Also,
You suck out the heads?
yeah, I just wanted to say what people like to do. It's like,
Oh, that's the stuff. Probably gross on camera, but
we are doing it for ourselves, not for the camera.
you wouldn't even know it was a murder scene on this tablecloth a second ago. Okay, so these are the two big wines of Dalmatia.
So when we speak about Dalmatia and its wines, the first variety that comes to your mind is Plavac Mali, the most planted red variety in Croatia, and it's the most popular one. The best example of Plavac Mali, which was planted on the hill of Dingač. So the wines there are very ripe, very juicy, strong in alcohol.
Dark red to black fruit, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of plums, not so high in acidity.
Big tannin structure, too. Spicy wine, herbal, spicy wine.
There's a bit of chocolate, of course, you get some vanilla taste and some of those barrel flavors.
Next to it, something that I believe is related to Plavac Mali, right?
This is Tribidrak or Crljenak, Kaštelanski, and you call it Zinfandel.
And the Italians call it Primitivo.
Italians call it Primitivo. It's a very famous variety, especially in the States, and it originates from Croatia.
Crljenak
Crljenak, Kaštelanski. Yeah, you'll get a lot of... say Crljenak again.
Crljenak.
Crljenak, okay, you're doing fine.
Now that is higher acid wine.
Yeah, this
sure.
one is more fresh, but also nice structured.
They're actually similar in flavor profile and just different in structure. You know, they both have those juicy dark red fruits, brambly fruits, maybe some herbal, some spice. The Dingac a little richer, maybe a little more tannin. This is a little less tannin, a little higher in acid.
It may be a bit more herbal notes here in this one than in Plavac.
Our last course was grilled bluefin tuna and a southern Dalmatian meat dish called pastichada, which is braised meat in wine, vinegar, onions, and dried fruit served over homemade gnocchi. And just a tip, they're pretty darn good at pasta here in Croatia. I love when we break norms, right? White wine and fish, you can't do red. Tannin and fish are the things that clash, right? So if you get a low tannin red and you get a nice hearty grilled fish like a tuna.
Exactly, I'm sure you'll love the pairing. And then we will have pasticada with dingac, which will also be, you will see.
2 dishes, 2 wines. I'm spoiled. The bluefin tuna is rich, fatty, and grilled, so it needs a fresh, high-acid wine like the Syrienek Kasztelanski to balance it out through the contrast and structure. The softer tannins keep it from clashing with the fish. On the meat side, Plavac Mali is a natural fit. Its tannin matches the richness of the meat and sauce, while the wine's dark, brambly fruit mirrors the dried fruit in the dish. Both wines match the weight of their respective dishes, and in true Dalmatian fashion, they follow the same rule. If it grows together, it goes together. Yeah, this just honestly got me so stoked for the rest of the week. I can't wait to explore the rest of Croatia. Thanks for coming here with me.
Yeah, thanks for joining me.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the episode. I wanted to talk to you briefly about Vino VIP. You see, we're a small team. There we are. We're not backed by a big studio or corporation. We rely on sponsorships and our fans to help us grow and continue to create content. So we started Vino VIP, our membership-only club, which is full of a ton of amazing benefits, almost all of which are virtual, by the way, which means you can join from anywhere in the world. Things like early, ad-free access to all our videos, virtual Zoom hangouts with me, members-only content, your name in the credits, monthly raffles and discounts, and access to our Facebook community so you can meet other members and get travel and wine tips. But most importantly, you get my gratitude because you're supporting the show and you're helping our small business and crew make content that we pledge will always be free and accessible, because that's our mission. Membership starts at just $5 a month, which is less than the price of your morning latte. So if this show has brought you value, please head to viasforvino.com to sign up for Vino VIP if you have the means. And now, back to the episode. The second major wine region in Croatia is the uplands, also known as the Central Croatia Highlands. It's in the north, along the Hungarian and Slovenian borders. Cut off from the Mediterranean by the Dinaric Alps, this area is cooler, slightly higher in elevation, and feels a world away from the cities or the crowded coasts. Think rolling hills, quiet villages, and a laid-back pace. That cool climate is ideal for bright, fresh whites and sparkling wines made from grapes found nowhere else in the country. Some of the best value wines in the uplands come from the sub-region of Međimurje. So I head there to visit David Štampar of Štampar Winery, tucked into the hills right along the Croatian-Slovenian border. What defines the uplands and specifically Međimurje?
This is the colder climate, and here we producing fresh wines, aromatic wines, and light wines. We produce mostly white wines, 95%.
Some people know, if they know Croatian wines, they know all the wines coming from Dalmatia and the coast, which are big, rich reds. But I like that there's this other area of Croatia that is known for these aromatic, fresh whites. And this specific area with these slopes, these are some of the best slopes in the region, right? Because of the sun exposure?
Yeah, because the sun, because of inclination.
Yeah, you get the drainage.
Yeah.
Your winery, you've had it in your family since the 1913.
Yes, I'm the 4th generation. My father, after 1990s, planted the vineyards. We produce mostly Pušipel and Sauvignon. This is half of production.
Pušipel, that is the same thing as what people might know as ferment, right?
Yes.
We got you here. Someone was excited about Pušipel. Hund.
But here in Međimurje, we produce very good sparkling, especially traditional method.
Pušipel makes some of the best traditional method wines. Like they really take to that style well, those grapes.
Pušipel have a very good acidity, very good pH, And this is most important for producing sparkling wines.
Well, I'd love to go try some of the wines.
Yes, of
All right.
course.
So this wine is what you called urban white. Tell me about it.
100% Pushipel, 8 months in big oak barrel, 22 months on yeast in the bottle, and then 3 months after disgorging is ready for the market.
What is the traditional method? What do you give to the wine? Why do that?
We can show the best of grape.
And you get the really fine effervescent bubbles from traditional method because, you know, if people don't know, the traditional method takes a lot of time.
About 3 years.
This is great. Okay, so the nose, beautiful, beautiful minerality. That is the first thing I get. And then I get some white flower notes or maybe even like purple flowers. But on the palate, it kind of trips you up because it's so mineral driven on the nose. And the palate has this burst of fruit that is really, really lovely.
This is the very fresh sparkling.
Green apple, Sour Patch Kid. And then it has this kind of burst of riper fruit character on the finish. And if you combine that with that minerality, it's just a really fun wine, and it's low in alcohol, it's 11.5%. This is like perfect starter wine. The best wines to me, every time I come in for another sip, I can't put my finger on what that is, or you get something new, and I get that with this. There's a lot happening in the glass.
So this is Pushipel Classic, the same variety like in sparkling, the same soil.
One and the same.
Fresh, light wine.
Is it dry, or is there sugar?
This is dry wine.
And people don't know, if you get ferment from Hungary, or if you get Pushipel from here, this is the traditional bottle for this grape. It's got the super long neck, it's really cool. This is one of my favorite underrated grapes. It's not 100% fruity or savory or spicy, you get a little bit of both. I said candy on the first wine too, and it's funny, I still get it here. It's not sweet, I don't want people to think like candy sweet, but it has this tart sweet mixture in the notes, kind of mint freshness too, like a fun like herbal character on the finish that I really like.
We say this is Croatian Riesling, very similar German Riesling because of good acidity and freshness.
I love that it has a creaminess without having any oak or malolactic fermentation. One thing I also say too that you sometimes get with fermenter, in this case Pushipel, is like a ginger spice. I don't think Pushipel is really comparable to many grapes in the world. It really is unique. You have to come here to try it, basically.
Yeah.
If you wondered what the structure was behind Štampar Winery, it's a lookout platform provided by the Međimurje region, so you can get the same epic views our drone does when you visit. Croatia has about 45,000 acres of vineyards. Relatively small on the global scale, that's roughly the same planted acreage as Napa Valley alone and comparable to its neighbor, Slovenia. But while its wine production may be modest, Croatia impressively cultivates over 130 indigenous grape varieties, a testament to its deep-rooted wine heritage. It's predominantly a white wine country with 67% of vineyard plantings devoted to white grapes, but that doesn't mean there aren't world-class reds. So let's start there. The most planted red grape in Croatia is Plavac Mali, accounting for about 10% of the country's vineyards, and is Croatia's signature red, a bold, powerful grape thriving in sun-drenched Dalmatia. It needs heat to ripen its thick skins, with top wines coming from the Dingač and Postup ZOIs, the country's first official wine regions. Plavac Mali wines are typically full-bodied, with high tannins and alcohol, and moderate to low acidity, giving them a rich, smooth, often jammy character when well made. Yeah. Expect notes of dark berries, dried fig, carob, earth, rose petals, black pepper, tobacco, and herbs. It's often compared to a more tannic Zinfandel, which makes sense as it's actually a genetic offspring. And speaking of Zinfandel, don't forget, it originated here and is known as Soljenak Kaštelanski, or Tribedrag. Another standout red is Babić, a variety related to Plavac Mali and somewhat similar in flavor, but with less tannin and more acidity, giving it a slightly fresher profile. Teran, grown primarily in Istria, is a famously terroir-driven grape. It's medium-bodied, high in acidity, and fairly tannic, with flavors of red fruit, spice, and a signature iron-like minerality. It can be compared to Italian Barbera. Among international varieties, Merlot is the most widely planted, and beyond that, there are plenty of other fascinating reds to explore, like Francova, Lacina, Portugieser, and Dobricic. Two grapes dominate white wine production in Croatia, Graševina and Malvazija Istarska. So let's look at them side by side. Graševina, which is confusingly also known by many names containing the word Riesling, is not actually related to Riesling at all. It's the most planted grape in all of Croatia, accounting for about 31% of production, mostly in the Slavonia and Danube area. It's typically light-bodied, with bright acidity and freshness, offering flavors of green apple, citrus, pear, white flowers, and good minerality, and a touch of bitter almond on the finish. It's usually dry, but off-dry, late harvest, and even ice wine styles exist. Our second white, Malvazija Istarska, has no direct connection to Italian Malvasia, despite the similar name. Grown primarily in Istria, it's like turning up the dial slightly on Graševina. Medium-bodied, medium alcohol, and slightly lower acidity than Graševina, thanks to Istria's warmer Mediterranean climate. While Graševina leans towards tart fruit, Malvazija shifts into white pear, white peach, dandelion, fresh herbs, and a distinctive bitter, mineral-driven finish, similar in profile to Vermentino. But what makes it special is its versatility of styles and ability to express terroir. You'll find stainless steel versions, barrel fermented expressions, skin contact orange wines, vintage wines, and sweet styles, showcasing its range and versatility. There are plenty more white grapes worth exploring, like Posip, often compared to Chardonnay, with its notes of apricot, vanilla, and dried citrus. Or Gurk, easily my favorite grape name ever, which brings flavors of candied fruit and melon, along with a signature bitterness. And that's just scratching the surface. So go ahead and sip bravely. You may not nail the pronunciation, but your palate will thank you nonetheless. Just 15 minutes from Štampar lies Varazdin, often called the Baroque capital of Croatia. And for a brief moment in the 18th century, it actually was the capital of the country. With its charming old town full of Austro-Hungarian architecture and beautifully preserved 14th century fortress, Varazdin feels less like the Croatia most people expect and more like a classic Central European town. It's refined, walkable, and quietly confident, a reminder that Croatia's story stretches far beyond the coast. It's also home to a unique restaurant called The Family. But this isn't your average dining spot. Not only can you enjoy a great meal or coffee, but you'll also be surrounded by football memorabilia from Croatia's legendary World Cup runs. Why? Because The Family is owned by none other than Zlatko Dalic. You might not know the name, but nearly every Croatian does. Since 2017, he's been the manager of the national football team, leading the country to 2 World Cup medals, silver in 2018 and bronze in 2022. For a nation of just under 4 million people, that level of success is extraordinary and a massive source of national pride. Fun fact, my wife was captain of her soccer team, and my director of photography, Rio, actually used to be a professional soccer player. Another fun fact, I think I've only touched a soccer ball maybe 3 times in my life. So, to sharpen my skills, Rio took me outside to teach me a few moves. At least, that's what I thought was going to happen. third major wine region of Croatia is Slavonia and the Danube, located in the far east of the country. Often called the breadbasket of Croatia, this area is defined by fertile farmland, freshwater rivers, and a mild continental climate, ideal for both agriculture and vineyards. It was and still is home to some of the most historic wineries in the country. The most famous name here is Kutjevo, and it's three things: a wine appellation with more than 30 wineries, a small town at the foot of the Krndija Mountains, and most importantly, the site of the oldest continuously operating winery in Croatia. Kutjevo Winery has been producing wines uninterrupted for over 800 years. 800 years! Brand ambassador Monica takes me into their ancient cellar to tell me more about Kutjevo's remarkable history.
So now we are in the oldest wine cellar in this part of Europe. Wine cellar was built in 1232.
Oh my gosh. I don't think people know that Croatia has this incredible wine history that dates back that long. Isn't that wild? A quick note, the Slavonian oak from this region is actually world famous and used far beyond Croatia, most notably in Piedmont for Barolo and Barbaresco, and Tuscany for Brunello di Montalcino and Chianti.
Here in Slavonia, we say that Slavonian oak is one of the best, and really it is.
I saw a couple that have like decorations, like carvings on them.
We will see 6 wooden barrels that represent us the history of this wine cellar. So first barrel represents first owner. They were Cistercians.
Cistercian monks, 1232 to 1526. Monica took me through the 800-year history of the winery depicted on these barrels.
Then we have Ottoman Empire.
I was blown away by all it had survived through the years. Let's see how much I absorbed. Okay, I'm gonna recap the history. We can see how well I was paying attention. So at the beginning, 1232, you had the Cistercian monks founded it. Then you had the Ottoman Empire. Then you had the Jesuits, who kind of revitalized the area. Then you had the Hungarians, who kind of didn't revitalize the area. In fact, they just sucked all the resources out of it. Then you had the family who bought it until about the end of the Second World War, when socialism took over, mass quantity for a lot of years, until after that period, and now we're back to good.
Yes.
Pretty good, right?
Great.
See, I can still learn something. After my lesson, I took a walk with Monica to check out some more of their cellar and bottles, and then with enologist Yakov to explore the rest of the winery, including the second largest Slavonian oak barrel in the country that's still in use. This thing was massive, capable of holding the equivalent of more than 67,000 bottles of wine. After my tour, we sat down to taste a few wines made from the region's signature and versatile grape, Graševina, starting with their Graševina de Goto. Graševina, right?
Right, it's Graševina.
That's kind of the grape of not only, I think, Slavonia, but it's the most planted white in the whole country, yeah?
It's the most planted grape variety in Croatia. More than 25% of the whole vineyards in Croatia are under Graševina.
So you get this beautiful kind of honey yellow color that comes from the oxygen, which is coming from the barrel. Now, how long does it spend in the barrel?
For a year and a half. Barrels that we are using are all between 3 and 5 years, something like that.
I love oxidative white wine noses. It starts to kind of develop the fruit character, almost overripe a little bit.
Yeah, but we're also trying to keep the, the primary aromas of the Graševina.
Yeah.
Keep the freshness.
Oh my gosh. So I just had my first sip, like just in love with this wine. That is my favorite style of white wine. Because you're right, lots of freshness. The acidity is mellowed, but it's still there.
It's still there.
Floral, kind of fun oxidative nose. And then in the palate, yellow peach, yellow apple, and then that bitter minerality on the finish.
Yeah, that minerality is getting out of the volcan soils.
Yeah, you can taste it. I always say that bitter character in white wine is kind of like tannin for red wine. It gives the wine a little bit of backbone on the finish.
Right, and that's also, I would like to say, one thing that's characteristic for Graševina.
That signature bitterness.
Yeah, the signature bitterness. The whole philosophy of this wine to show the face of the Graševina has got the potential for...
to age. This wine can age.
To age.
This wine can age. Our second wine was also Graševina, but this time in a very special style, ice wine. To make ice wine, the grapes are left on the vine until temperature drops low enough for the water inside the grapes to freeze, while the sugar remains concentrated. The grapes are then pressed while still frozen, extracting only a thick, intensely sweet nectar that becomes a rich, dessert-style wine.
The last vintage that we did it was 2018.
Yeah, you can't do it every year.
We cannot do it every
It
year.
has to be the right conditions.
Right. Those kind of wines can ferment for even for a year. Slow. It has to be
fermentation.
very controlled fermentation. You know, we check them every year, every week.
Oh, the nose. Oh my gosh. You've got two of my favorite categories of wine here, the oxidative dry wine and then the sweet dessert style with the honeyed, way over the top floral quince. A little like gingery spice.
Yeah, a little bit gingery spice.
Right?
Yeah, but still the freshness here.
Still the freshness.
Yeah.
Golden raisin
Right.
character. I think still the minerality, which is kind of cool in a dessert wine because that can sometimes fade.
Because the positions, so the both soils are volcanic, you know.
Yeah. The more I taste it, then more even that minerality comes through.
True, right.
You don't often get that on dessert wines. That is cool. Is Graševina my new favorite under the radar grape? Like this is.
I hope so.
Both of these wines are so bomb. I cannot believe I haven't really had them before.
Yeah.
Shame on me, I suppose.
Yeah, but this is probably the only place where you can come and try those kind of wines produced from Graševina, you know. So you have to come back at Slavonia again.
Yeah. Oh, I'll be
Sure.
back. After my tasting, as the sun set, I head to the winery's brand new modern restaurant, Restoran Korčula. I was actually here with the crew for lunch earlier in the day where we were treated to one of the most epic charcuterie and cheese boards I've ever seen. Turns out, Croatia is really serious about their cured meats and cheese, as this was common everywhere I went. But tonight, with agro-tourism manager Damjan Orec, the meal included a delicious wild boar lasagna, more local wines, and sweeping views over the vineyards. All in all, a pretty perfect day at the oldest winery in Croatia. 800 years in and still going strong. Did you know every episode has its own page on our website? You can see all the wines we tasted and everywhere we visited on the trip. And while you're there, you can also join Vino VIP. Members get behind-the-scenes videos, bonus content, a full library of wine education and my personal picks, plus a brand new perk, an ever-expanding library of curated travel recommendations for wine regions around the world. Just thought I'd let you know. The fourth and final wine region in Croatia, and where we'll be spending the rest of our time, is Istria. If Slavonia is defined by tradition, Istria is its dynamic, progressive counterpart. Maybe that's because it's had to reinvent itself so many times. This land changed hands more than most, and locals like to joke. My grandfather was born in Austria, my father in Italy, I was born in Yugoslavia, and my son in Croatia, and yet we've never moved. From a wine perspective, over the last 20 years, Istria has experienced a remarkable rise in quality and experimentation. Modern cellars, bold blends, and fearless winemakers have transformed it into the beating heart of Croatian wine innovation, earning it the nickname the Tuscany of Croatia. During our stay in Istria, the crew and I will be based in Porec, an ancient Roman coastal town that's evolved into a modern getaway. I mentioned earlier that I made a lot of friends while planning this episode, and one of them is fellow sommelier and Croatian local, Ivana. She reached out during pre-production and offered to show me around where she works in downtown Porec and grab some coffee while we were at it. She took me to a pretty special spot for our coffee meetup, the kind of place you really only find in Europe.
The building here is actually standing here from 1447 and is one of the nicest fine dining restaurant in town.
I mean, how cool. How many places in the world can you go and you can go eat at a fine dining restaurant that's a building from the 1400s?
Yeah.
And also have your coffee on the roof with beautiful views.
Beautiful view, and underneath you can see all the historic part of this tower.
Coffee culture is no joke in Croatia.
No joke.
No joke. It's a thing where people kind of hang out on the patio for hours.
Yeah,
You just,
every time of the day, from the morning till the evening. After every meal, we have a coffee.
Yep.
For the breakfast, this is first thing what we're having. For after lunch, coffee. After dinner, coffee.
Coffee.
We finish everything with a coffee.
I just love that patio culture. I think it's expected that if you come, you get the table for as long as you want, 3-4 hours, it doesn't matter.
This is the part of the day when you take a seat and relax and do have a casual conversation with the friends and colleagues from the work.
Not only part of the day, but just kind of like part of life. Like I've noticed that Croatians in general, a little reserved when you first meet them, and then as they open up, they love to laugh, they love to drink, they like to party. It's a fun culture.
Especially here in the coast where we gathering and we have a lot of tourists coming, and this is how we live. Yeah.
We took a walk through downtown Porec and along the water, taking in the harbor front, the 6th century Euphratean Basilica, gelato stands, Old Town, cafes, and just general European vibes. Cities made originally for people, not cars, and somehow they managed to stay that way. While the area around and south of Porec is known for its coastline and larger towns, northern Istria is more rural, hilly, and romantic. Here you trade resorts and nightlife for Italian-influenced gastronomy and medieval hilltop villages. And that's exactly where I'm headed with my friend Augustin. He's a huge advocate for Croatian wine and helps me plan much of this episode. So I brought him along with me to one of his favorite wineries in the country, Kozlović, a family winery that has been operating since 1904. It's situated at the foot of a 13th century castle, a fun juxtaposition to the new modern facility that's the perfect backdrop for our conversation with 4th generation winemaker Gianna Kozlović. Istria, I don't know why it wasn't on my radar before, but it is gorgeous. It's got this amazing Italian influence. It's got this amazing landscape, still uniquely Croatian. I mean, I get why you wanted us to come here.
I think it's still a hidden gem in Europe itself. Even not a lot of people close by in Italy knows all the things here.
So how long have you and your family been making wine here?
About 120 years ago, we moved here.
Wow.
But really intensely, the wine production has started 30 to 40 years ago, where we started to focus only on the wines.
Everybody says that here in Istria is where you're really seeing this great modern winemaking movement.
They are the pioneers of this region.
One of the reasons why we are very well known in Croatia and in the neighboring countries is because we have basically been one of the first few wineries that started to produce the modern Malvazija in this area in the 90s.
Istria uncovered those indigenous varieties, Malvazija and Teran. That's where terroir gets recognized, and that's, I think, where Croatia can strive going forward.
On the break, the crew and I were treated to yet another epic lunch and then took a tour of the facilities, which are simultaneously modern and traditional. Stainless steel tanks and a high-tech production line sit side by side with traditional Slavonian oak casks and reminders of the winery's history. We then took to the patio for our tasting.
Malvazija Istriana, the full name and surname, is the most important grape variety here in Istria, and it's about almost 70% of the hectares of the whole region.
Malvazija can be made in a bunch of different styles, right? It can be made in the fresh style, but this is a little different, correct?
This is a very intense Malvazija, very ripe. We harvest 1 to 2 weeks after the fresh Malvazija, so it's a lot riper. And then we go through a lot of aging, first in oak, then stainless steel, and then about 2 years in the bottle as well. Our philosophy is to age the wine and then sell it when it's ready.
The cool thing about that Slavonian oak is you get a lot of the oxidative quality, but they're so large and those barrels aren't new, so you don't get all the flavor overwhelming.
What makes location Santa Lucia Vineyard so special in your portfolio, but in this part of Istria as well?
Santa Lucia is the name of a vineyard that's located in the northwest of Istria, and it's been actually known as a cru or as a more famous position in the region since the 60s, and we have a lot of limestone. And this gives kind of salty concentration of the Malvazija, which is very typical.
There is fruit here. There's some great yellow fruit character, some apricot-y character.
Yeah.
But that is not the first thing I would say that I get on this wine. I probably more get yellow flowers, the minerality. I also get a flinty or smoke character on the nose, medium plus body texture. I think from the combination of the later picking, the lees aging, and the oxygen. You put all three of those together and you get that waxy character that's so fun in these style of wine.
Minerality here is really expressive. In the end, it's chewy.
That's that waxy, like chewiness for sure.
So we are drinking a second local Istrian variety, which is called Teran. Extremely challenging in the vineyard. It produces a lot. It ripens really late. The acidity is very high, so that combined with the high tannins that can be aggressive and not so ripe, it can be a challenging wine.
This sounds like a nightmare. Why are we even planning this grape? Now, what vintage is this?
So this is actually 2018.
I brought this up because the color, you can see the slightly kind of rust amber color starting to take shape. Oh, cool nose. Nebbiolo-esque nose. That is brilliant. I am like blown away. This is such a sick wine. The tannin structure is ripping, even at like 7 years old now.
That's right.
There's this rich kind of iron, steely minerality that is fun. There's the red fruit character. There's still good acidity. If you like Northern Italian wines, you're gonna love this.
Why so much wineries here were afraid of Teran, and how come you decided to go?
Yeah, bravely.
Yeah.
Because it has all of the things to be a great red wine. You just have to learn the peculiarities or twists that it can have in the vineyard.
The proof is in the pudding, as we say. Do you not know that expression? It's an American expression. You know, the proof is in the results, and it still has so much longer to go. It still has 10 to 15 years easy.
And it lasts for ages.
It's a pretty wine.
They have a lot of this, what you said, like floral component, the red berries, white, black pepper.
We kind of had two wines that represent both the old and the new, just like the winery. You have the Malvazija, which is a little more traditional, the big Slavonian oak. And then you have this grape that I think is kind of an up-and-coming grape using the French oak. So I love the hybrid of modern and traditional. Really, really happy for your family to hopefully continue this another 100 years.
Thank you.
Just up the road from the winery is one of the most picturesque villages in all of Istria, the hilltop town of Grožnjan. By the mid-1900s, this town was nearly abandoned. But instead of letting it fade away, the Croatian people transformed it into a haven for creators of all kinds. Today, it's known as the Town of Artists, where cobblestone streets are lined with jazz bars, metalworks, and intimate gallery spaces. Painter Marko Brković was gracious enough to welcome us into his studio for a look around. Walking through Grožnjan reminded me of what I'd learned about Istrian wine culture, taking something ancient yet overlooked and breathing new life into it without losing what made it authentic in the first place. While northern Istria is more rural and hilly, southern Istria is known for its beautiful coastlines. At the very southern tip of the region, in the Vodjan appellation, I met Marko of Medea Winery and some of the most riveting vineyards I've ever seen. Think Malibu meets Istria. However, on the day we visited, it was windy. Look at that hair! Nevertheless, Marko walked me through why this vineyard, called Punta Greca, is so special and produces one of the top wines in all Croatia. It's all about the iron-rich Istrian red clay soils. We are on the ocean. I've been to vineyards close to the ocean, but we are on the sea. But I have to imagine being near the water keeps the grapes nice and cool so you can extend the growing season a little bit.
Yes, of course. In the late growing season, so in the ripening period, we can ripen the grapes to perfect conditions and keep the acidity and the pH where we want them.
This might have been turned into some sort of resort on the water, a hotel, a golf course, but instead you were able to snag it for these amazing vineyards. And it's special because the soil is special, right?
It's special. We found out that the soil is less soil, predominantly clay soil with quartz and flint. Also, in upper parts, it is mixed with Istrian red soil.
Which is very famous, the Istrian red soil.
It gives character, so it keeps the water in the vineyards.
You have a lot of like foliage on the ground, I can see.
Because of many reasons. The first one is to keep the vineyard cool. The second part, when this upper part dies off, the roots provide nutrients for the vines, so we have very good biodiversity.
Organic fertilizers.
Organic fertilizers, so we don't have to intervene and enter foreign fertilizers that don't belong in this vineyard.
So you end up probably with amazing grapes coming from all this effort, which I would love to go try before we blow away. After doing my best to fix my hair, we headed to their production facility about 45 minutes away, but not before stopping for one of the best lunches I've had in recent memory at Alla Bocaccia. As you've learned, Istria has a strong Italian influence, and we went all in on an insane homemade pasta and braised lamb dish called pecca, or under the bell. Slow cooked, unbelievably tender, and just magical. Who knew Istria could go toe-to-toe with Italy? Okay, let's get back on track here. Wine tasting time, first with another Malvazija Istarska. This isn't from Punta Greca, this is from a different vineyard.
Yeah, this is from the vineyard called Montiron. It is the old type of Malvazia, so we call it the indigenous Malvazia. This vineyard is one of the last preserved vineyards of this type of Malvazia.
Great minerality on the nose. Tell me how you make this wine.
We harvest it by hand. Fermentation, partially in oak and the other part in stainless steel. After the fermentation, 4 months on the lees.
That's where I'm getting some of that richness too, I think, is some lees aging. You can definitely taste that.
I don't want to overdo it because that is not the highlight of the wine. I want to give it some body and to make it more interesting, I think.
When I say rich, this wine is very, very lean. I should say that it has depth because medium body, great integrated acidity, nose very, very mineral driven, palate much more fruit character, and then you get some like fleshy, fun, peachy fruits, like white peach.
People find it very harmonious, a little bit creamy, but not too much.
Very drinkable wine, like dangerously drinkable. Now for the main event. This is named after the vineyard we were in this morning, right?
Yes, it is called Punta Greca as the vineyard that it comes from. It is 100% Merlot. We planted the Merlot because of the soil that we talked about before. We all know how much Merlot likes clay, classically produced, so no big interventions. We have 4 different types of Merlot in Punta Greca. So we make the vinification separately, aging separately, and then in the blending we decide.
I'll embarrass you a little bit. This wine's kind of a big deal in Croatia. I think it's one of the premier wines of the country. Like, people know this wine.
I like to think that way.
Yeah. That is so velvety. When people describe a wine as like elegant velvet, that is what I get with this. Such an underrated grape. Everybody loves Cabernet, right? They forget that Merlot is more planted in, for instance, Bordeaux, where it's famous, than the Cabernet is, because it gives this plummy, round mouthfeel.
Yeah.
The tannins just integrate so nicely.
Quite firm tannin structure, so it can age.
I wouldn't even blink to put this down for 10 to 15 more years and see where it goes. I do get some of the spiced oak character mixed with the like dark red fruits. Mm-hmm. People think of Merlot as this like, oh, this fun fruity wine. Merlot is kind of a meaty wine. You can get some tobacco, you can get some meat smoke character, and I get a little bit of that with this too. The finish is so long, so indicative of just really high quality winemaking and high quality vineyards. The other thing is that it's 15% alcohol, which is
yes, it is
high, but doesn't drink hot.
That is why we use all those grass in the vineyards to cool the vineyards, not to overripe, to keep the vineyard cool.
Your goal, I know, is to kind of make this one of the premier wines of the world, up there with places in Italy, the Super Tuscans, or top wines of Bordeaux. That is the goal with this, right?
That is the goal.
Well, you're well on your way. This is absolutely stunning wine.
Cheers.
One last thing. In case I didn't eat enough, Marco brought out a board of local Istrian meats and cheese. And guess what? They once again rivaled the best Italian products I've ever had.
Pancetta, we have the sausages and the wonderful cheese.
Oh my God, so good. Medea also makes olive oil, so Marco walked me through a tasting.
This is our most prestigious olive oil.
Fun, like vegetal and pepper character.
Freshly cut grass.
Asparagus.
Tomato leaf.
It's amazing how pronounced it is. Eventually, the crew and my new friends joined in, and it became clear why Istria is a hotspot for Croatian gastronomy and why wineries like Medea have no fear going toe-to-toe with the world's great food and wine regions. As I mentioned, Porec is a blend of new and old, and sometimes new is nice. The crew and I stayed at the Valamar Hotel, right on the waterfront promenade and just steps from Porec's lively old town. Sleek modern rooms with sea view balconies overlook St. Nicola Island, home to another Valamar property that has a pretty killer beach. Mornings for the crew and I usually started with breakfast together before heading out to film, and all in all, it was a pretty perfect place to unwind after long days while still being right in the middle of the action. Plus, it was just steps from where we'd be having dinner that night. There's an underrated luxury in knowing that you can enjoy the evening and be home in minutes. While the crew and I enjoyed our fair share of casual meals on this trip, I had something a bit more elegant planned for my final dinner in Croatia. Downstairs, as part of the Riviera Hotel, is restaurant Spinnaker, led by chef Goran Rastovchuk, who trained in 3 Michelin star kitchens and was ready to provide us a modern take on classic Istrian dishes and local ingredients. Because it isn't just the wine that earned Istria the nickname the Tuscany of Croatia, it's the food too. Joining me for the evening were 3 of Istria's top winemakers, Milan Budinski of Olmo Wines, Bruno Trapan of Trapan Winery, and David Deklik of Deklik Winery. Chef came out to present his amuse-bouche, 4 beautifully presented small bites. Next, it was time for our first wine from David Deklik, who runs the over 100-year-old Deklik Winery with his siblings as the 4th generation.
Konstantin is the name of my grandfather, and this is our first Konstantin Malvazija, like aged one, list,
oak,
then aging in the oak,
Yep.
and then going back in stainless steel in tank, and then 1 year in the bottle.
Wow, beautiful, juicy acidity. Mineral front, fruit middle, and on the back palate, that's where I really get any of the oak leaves, vanilla, nuttiness, creaminess.
Yes, grape minerality comes from the red soil parts with the stones.
I've had probably 6 different styles of Malvazija. I think that's kind of fun, like that you guys as winemakers get to play with that.
You do it in acacia, you can do it sweet, you can do it fresher, you can do it sparkling.
And I love these slightly bitter, medium-bodied whites. I always call that bitterness like white wine tannin.
I think everyone who's tasting the wine at some point should taste the grapes. When you would chew on Malvazija skins, you would feel how much tannins it has, but they are all sweet.
Out with our first course, homemade ravioli stuffed with sheep cheese, shaved truffles, and a sauce made from spider crabs, which had just come in season.
This is white truffle.
White truffle, oh man, he's sparing no expense tonight. From a pairing perspective, the acid in the wine cut through the creamy, salty cheese ravioli and crab sauce, and the medium-bodied wine matched the weight of the dish. Plus, these are all local ingredients paired with a local wine, so if it grows together, it goes together. Next was Milan Budinski, who's a bit of a Croatian legend. Over the course of his career as one of the world's top enologists, he's produced millions of bottles of Malvazija for wineries across the country. No one understands the grape quite like he does. Olmo is his personal passion project, where all that experience and knowledge comes together in a focused, small batch production. Whereas Deklik's Malvazija was grown on red soils, this is grown on Istria's other famous soil. It's white soil.
The white soil in Istria is in fact the flysch, the marine sediment. In the sea you have beaches, you have shallows, deep sea. So imagine pushing everything that's on the surface. There is a lot of like a sprinkled coralligenous algae in it. And I said, okay, if I want to impress someone with the Malvazia, I will choose this terroir.
This is one of those like master classes in terroir, whereas yours reminded me so much of what I love about maybe some northern Italian whites. Yours has more of that Burgundy-esque character, kind of riper, fleshier fruit style with this.
I wanted to kind of emulate the old Burgundy, meaning using time. So I aged it for 2 winters because I want the natural stability of the wine.
There is a remarkable opulence to this wine, and I love that you can get 2 distinctly different styles from this same grape. Going back to the terroir and the expert hand of the winemaker, I am just blown away. Following the pasta course, our fish course was turbot fillet and langoustine with caviar and beurre blanc. This is outstanding. And with the beurre blanc, creamy on creamy, it's pretty perfect. What a perfectly balanced wine. The acid cut through the beurre blanc, but the rich, creamy fruit character of the Malvazia matched the texture of it. Plus, the riper style wine matched the weight of the richer dish, and it's still a grows together, goes together pair. Next was Bruno's Teran from southern Istria, grown in a much warmer climate than the Teran we tasted earlier from Kozlović. Bruno has helped push the boundaries of Istrian winemaking by being unafraid to experiment, challenging expectations while still staying true to the region's indigenous grapes and sense of place.
I wanted to show everybody something that we've been cooking on and sitting on for a long time. It's a barrel sample. Finally realized the potential of the Teran needs to be embraced with long aging in old oak. This is now 5th year.
I had Teran at Kozlović. Hers was definitely more a closer equivalent to a Nebbiolo. In fact, I said that right away. Yours is different than that. Instead of roses, though, I'm in like violets.
Yeah.
Instead of tart red fruit, I'm in like dark red fruit land. Fruit character is starting to get dried on this a little bit.
Teran has lots of soily, earthy smells. Istria as a region has a better, at least for me, a better opportunity creating very structured, elegant, world-class red wines. I think this is what I think the future of Croatia or Istria in winemaking.
Same question for both of you that he touched on. What is the future of both Istrian and Croatian wine?
Obviously, preserving our own varieties.
It is very important that every year we put the new vineyards, that in future that we have our local grape.
Focusing on a few grapes that define the region.
Yes.
The final course was oxtail, served with chickpea cream and beetroot. The beef comes from a special native Istrian cattle breed that, thanks to renewed local demand, has been brought back from near extinction. Another powerful example of the region's commitment to preserving its local terroir. This oxtail was delicious. The tannin in the wine loved the braised, fatty oxtail, the earthy Teran matched the flavors of the earthy root vegetables, and the full-bodied wine matched the weight of the heavy dish. Plus, it's all still local. We finished with one final course from the pastry chef, every bit as gorgeous as it was delicious. A blueberry and violet dessert inspired by the flower garden of her childhood, it was a reminder of just how much heart and personal history chefs pour into their work. And after a week immersed in Croatian culture, I wanted to make sure everyone at the table, and all of you watching at home, understood just how special this country truly is. I've been in Croatia, 7 days now. You are far too humble of people for what you have to offer in this country. The food culture, the wine culture, the hospitality, the kindness of the people, the history. From start to finish, you can get so much of what you love about a travel destination by visiting this one small piece of the globe. I just got to thank you guys so much for sharing that throughout the whole week. You guys are incredible. Thank you guys. We lingered for hours, finishing bottles, laughing, and soaking it all in. Chef Goran and the entire Spinnaker team even treated the crew to the same multi-course meal we enjoyed, plus a few bonus dishes, which felt perfectly indicative of the kindness we experienced throughout the whole trip. I may have revisited a few plates myself. I savored the night, knowing it was the final evening of the journey, but not the last time I'd be back. Croatia's known for its beaches, right? So before heading home, I knew I had to take a walk along the coast. It was cold, windy, no sand, not your usual beach day. Also unusual, I was alone. After my time here, that felt wrong, because I didn't get here alone. If you know how this show works, you know that to make an episode, our very small crew spends about a week in a region working sunup to sundown. But long before we even step foot in a country, before we hit record, we usually depend on someone on the ground. A local who believes in the show. Someone willing to advocate for us, make introductions, and open doors. In Croatia, I had two of those, Tomislav and Augustin. Not execs or a marketing team, just two guys with a vision and passion. They refused to let this episode die on the vine. They both worked tirelessly to connect us with the right people, backed every request we made, and showed up when things got messy. Because making an episode is never easy. It didn't take long to realize that they weren't the exception. People like them are the norm in Croatia. There is Ivana, who connected us with Spinnaker and our hotel, our rental car company, who fixed not one, but two flat tires. My bad. Our wineries and winemakers, David, the team at Kutjevo, Gianna, Marco, and the other David, Milan and Bruno. From the family to Korčula, and even our newest Croatian crew member, Stepan, I've never had a more collaborative episode than Croatia. I'd never say I'm the smartest sommelier or the best filmmaker in the world, but I do try to work hard, lead with kindness, and show up fully for my team and the people I meet. And it turns out the people of Croatia do the same. They make difficult things happen through persistence, generosity, and a genuine love of gathering together. And they welcome strangers with the same warmth they show their own. So what comes from that isn't just a beach destination. It's a country actively reinventing itself and redefining its culture, one glass of wine and shared moment at a time. And that alone is worth a whole lot more than a day at the beach. Hey, Vince here. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you have a moment, follow us on Instagram. And if you really want to support, please consider joining Vino VIP on viasforvino.com. It's our members-only club with a ton of benefits. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.